Thank you, Zach.
The Gemini forces called me out of semi-retirement, put me in front of the world stage, and now my words are being delivered as far away as Ireland. Goodness gracious, what an amazing event. Okay, friends, the notes on Nibiru, the journey continues, and this is the fantastic photograph that Kat took on the 10th of May. Sunrise and Nibiru rise over Uluru. Fantastic. Great capture of Nibiru. Next slide, please. Well, some of you may have heard that recent revelations have come out of Russia. And in the screenshot, we can see on the left, in the Cyrillic language, the Russian language, Russian alphabet, Cyrillic alphabet, what was reported recently in the media there. And on the right, you get the translation into English. And basically what they showed was a SOHO image, and we'll talk about what SOHO is very soon. And the claim was an object larger than the Earth was spotted above the sun. Interesting. Next slide, please. All right, what is SOHO? It's the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory. It's a European Space Agency spacecraft, which was built by the Europeans, a space consortium. It was launched on an Atlas rocket on December of 1995 to study the sun. And apparently it's discovered more than 5,000 comets. So you get a high-powered telescope out of the atmosphere of the Earth. And of course, telescopes in the Earth are subject to distortions, pollutions, all sorts of things. But you get a high telescope out of the Earth's atmosphere, you can get much clearer images of space, both near space and deep space, far space. And that's why it's probably discovered more than 5,000 comets, which is quite a record. It started normal operations in May of '96. It's a joint project between the ESA, that's the European Space Agency, and NASA. Okay, it was originally planned as a 2-year mission, but it continues to operate 29 years in space. Now, I find this part of it very interesting. The mission has been extended until the end of 2025. How interesting. Will the ESA and NASA continue the mission past late 2025? My best guess, it's only a guess, no, they will not. And there were some reasons for that, which we'll see shortly. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a composite photograph from Zetatalk, and it shows Nibiru captures, that is to say, photographs of Nibiru caught on SOHO from 2010 to the present 2025. And we can see in the image on the right a more recent capture of Nibiru. And in the close-up, we can see the body with the two main moon swirls. And that's what Nibiru looks like on many captures, photographs from SOHO in the past. It's sort of like a firebird, and that's what the Russians are calling this recent capture of a so-called firebird above the sun. They're calling it a fiery bird or whatever. Next slide, please. Okay, these are SOHO images from this month. And what we have here is the tail of Nibiru. Don't forget that Nibiru has a very, very long tail. It's composed of particles ranging from the size of dust up to the size of small pebbles, we're told. These particles are magnetically charged and they're also greasy. And maybe a month and a half ago, maybe a little longer, I talked about the toxic fog that was detected in the United States a few months ago. And it's been the subject of wild speculation since that point in time. But for me, ZetaTalk provides a real answer, which is it was particulates, greasy particulates from the tail of Nibiru falling on the Earth. But these are fairly nice images of the tail of Nibiru. But of course, the ESA and NASA have not identified them as such because they are two of the main architects of the Nibiru cover-up, which is the official denial that Nibiru exists, i.e., it's just a fantasy. It's a crazy theory, no basis whatsoever, but we do have photos, many of them, ranging from the first photo we saw, the capture by Cat on the 10th of May at Uluru, to these photographs from Soho. Next slide, please. Now, this is quite interesting. This is from April this year. Apparently, NASA has a computer program which cuts out images of Nibiru, or most of them anyway. Some of them do get through. So we see there's a cut here. You can clearly see in the enlargement on the left side that something has been cut out or stitched up or whatever. So it appears that we have either the tail of Nibiru or possibly one of the moon swirls coming out from that planet, and the rest has been cut out, brushed out, etc. And it should also be mentioned that NASA regularly does this to the many images of UFOs, or they're called now UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. We have so many photographs of UFOs and so on, dating back years and decades. And NASA has routinely cut them out, deleted them from its images because of course, ETs, UFOs, just a fantasy, just a theory. Well, the problem for them and the official establishment is that millions of people around the world have actually witnessed UFOs. We actually saw a program just a few days ago. It was Dan Aykroyd, the famous actor, talking about unusual phenomena. I think it's not The Unexplained, that's William Shatner, but it's a similar title, which I can't forget. At the very end of it, he talked about the 1961 abduction of the couple in New Hampshire in the United States, Barney and Betty Hill. And I won't go into that. You can look on the internet and find lots of info about that. But they basically were abducted into a UFO, and they had some experiences which weren't particularly pleasant. And then they were returned to their car. All that, of course, has been denied, covered up by the government, mainly because they didn't want to incite panic among the population or whatever. But the truth is coming out, and the truth is that there are thousands of people, millions of people, in fact, who have direct observation of UFOs. And at the end of this program, Dan Aykroyd, who is a fairly well-known personality, said himself, I personally myself have had 4 experiences, 4 encounters, but we're not going to go there today. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, well, gee, we'd like to hear about those. Thank you very much, Dan Aykroyd. So maybe in the future, he'll talk about it. Next slide, please. Interesting photo from Soho, from Mercury, from February this year. And we can see Mercury, the planet Mercury, visible below Nibiru. And of course, Chandra's been talking about Mercury as the exoteric ruler of Gemini. And now we have it on official NASA/ESA footage. Nibiru above Mercury. So we get so many images of Nibiru, and yet the establishment, the authorities are denying it exists, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bit ridiculous, really, to be quite frank. Next slide, please. This is from a Russian website, Gazeta RU, just a few days ago, actually. And a gentleman named Kiselev, he's an astronomer in Russia, reported that comet was mistaken for a fiery bird above the sun. Okay, the huge fiery bird above the sun, and that's what they're calling it. It was captured by one of the telescopes on the SOHO. Turned out to be a comet. That's the official version at this point in time. Of course, that comet is not going away because comets don't spend a lot of time in one place in the sky. They move on pretty quickly. But this comet, quote unquote, is not going away anytime soon. It was reported by Alexander Kiselev in conjunction with a Russian language website. And the official version, the official narrative is this is most likely a comet passing very close to the sun, namely a sun-scratching comet, he noted. Okay, and he said furthermore that the comet probably evaporating or disintegrating due to the high temperature of the sun. Well, of course, that's not going to happen because it wasn't a comet, it was actually Nibiru. The day before, the Solar Astronomy Laboratory reported that scientists had recorded a mysterious optical object above the sun, similar to a bird and more than 10 times larger than the planet Earth. 10 times larger, well, that's pretty significant. The wingspan of the bird was about 150,000 kilometers. It was hovering at an altitude of about 2 million kilometers above the sun. So we're not talking about small objects in the inner solar system. These are fairly major size ones. Nothing like Jupiter or Saturn or Uranus, those gas giants, which are far bigger. But for inner solar system objects, these are not small or insignificant. Next slide, please.
And it's so interesting, Zach. On the one hand, they say this is 10 times larger than the planet. Maybe it is or not, but then they don't mention what impact that could be having on the oceans or the planet at all. They just say, oh, it's going to blow up, it's going to disintegrate.
Well, the theory at this point in time is it's just a comet, right?
Yeah.
So, but after another week, another 2 weeks, another month, the comet won't be disappearing. It won't have moved on. So where do we go from here? You can almost see the Russians laying out the baby steps for the misinformed and deluded public. Yes, this is what we have to do. We have to get 10 baby steps for them to acknowledge that it's actually an extraterrestrial body called Nibiru. So this is step 1. This is step 2 in the plan. Step 3 and step 4 might take 2 or 3 months more, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I reckon anyway.
I reckon it's really interesting that it's in the shape of a bird with wings, because you see all the old Assyrian statues of the gods have got their wings.
Yes, exactly. And if you remember, did you remember the Egyptian symbol?
Oh, yeah.
Sun with the serpent on either side and the wings. That's Nibiru. That's the symbol for Nibiru from Egyptian times.
Yeah.
Okay, and as stated, this is the English translation of the posting on the Russian website. And there we have it, Nibiru, which they're currently identifying as a comet. That's almost hilarious. It's almost jocular, but it's not going away like a comet. It's going to stay there for quite a while. And in fact, it's getting closer to Earth, folks. That's the humorous part, if you can find some humor in all this. Next slide, please. All right, this is from Zetatalk Question and Answers, May of this year. Triangulating the birds seen on SOHO from many different SOHO cameras. Now, that's what the Russians did. The astronomers at the Russian Academy of Sciences took these various SOHO photographs of Nibiru, and they were able to plot a location in 2 dimensions, a 2-dimensional version of space. It might be close at hand or far away, so we don't know. But in 3 dimensions, it ranged closer to the sun, and so it was huge. And they were able to do this through some sort of triangulation. I don't exactly know the technique, but if you're an astronomer or you're good in that sort of field, you'll figure out a way. And the object, of course, is Nibiru. In 2010, NASA and JPL is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, I think it's in Pasadena in California, began blotting out the Nibiru images with cut and paste lines discernible on the SOHO images. And we've seen one of those, the blue image, we don't have to go back, where there was obviously a cut and paste. The question is not the identity of the bird, but how it arrived in the Russian media and escaped the NASA JPL blotting. Interesting. Now, how did that happen? What happened to the Nibiru cover-up? And that's a huge question because, as mentioned in one of my earlier lectures, the Nibiru cover-up, the denial of Nibiru on the part of the authorities, the establishment, governments, astronomers, the media, is as significant and may be even more significant than the existence of Nibiru itself. That's my opinion, of course. Next slide, please. And continuing, okay, this is from February 10, 2010. What is appearing on the SOHO and stereo satellite images just does not stop. First, Planet X as a winged globe or red cross, and its moon swirls began appearing. And you can see 2009, these various images of Nibiru from SOHO. Stereo was a program that was it was 2 satellites on either side of the sun, but though that particular project or satellite pooped out in 2014, they were able to revive it for a couple of years, but then it pooped out for good in 2016. So we no longer have stereo images, but we do have the SOHO images and they keep coming. Next slide, please. NASA found this so threatening to the cover-up that they allowed doctored images to be placed into their archives, pretending that the winged globe and so on had been there for years and years, but the doctoring was obvious. And you can see the images from a German debunker site. I presume that's a site where they were trying to debunk the whole concept of Nibiru. And then the SOHO official archives, it appears to me, they just simply copied the image from the debunker site and said, well, this is what it is, and there's nothing there to be seen or to be concerned about. Next slide, please. This is from a recent Zetatalk analysis. We anticipated a cooperation between President Trump and Putin on a Nibiru admission by the end of March. Well, they actually predicted last year, March of 2024, that Putin would make an official announcement about Nibiru in March of 2024, but he pooped out for whatever reason. They never actually explain why, and I don't know. Okay, according to Zetatalk, Trump and Putin wanted to make an admission by the end of March. That's this year, but the Nibiru cover-up went into hyperdrive, and the Nibiru cover-up, as mentioned, is an extremely significant event or ongoing process in the world. Of course, most people don't have a clue that they're being lied to and the cover-up even exists. Trump and Putin are indeed cooperating on the Nibiru admission. This can be seen in the NASA and JPL lifting the cut and paste blotting action they've been doing on the Nibiru bird and SOHO images for over a decade, and the stir in the Russian media. Congratulations to both of them for stepping forward to start the public debate, which can now begin. And while this incident, this reporting in the Russian media is certainly a big step forward, it may only be a baby step in the overall picture of things, because the interest has to be sustained. The pressure has to be kept up. Will Putin and Trump keep that pressure up? Will the Russian media keep reporting on this fiery bird above the sun, or will they just choose to ignore it in the days, weeks, and months ahead? We simply don't know. Next slide, please. In other words, where to from here? The fiery bird announcement spotted above the sun is a great start. It's the first official break in the Nibiru cover-up, and that cover-up has been going for decades, actually since December of 1983, when the first story about this incoming object, it wasn't called Nibiru then, but it was an object depicted in space, was announced in the Washington Post, and I covered that announcement in one of my previous lectures. Okay, don't expect a whisper about any of that to be broadcast in the Western media or the so-called alternative media, because the alternative media has dismally, sorely failed to cover this very important subject. The media will continue the Nibiru cover-up, and that's on orders from the predatory elitists, and they will not broadcast what just happened in Russia. Next slide, please. All right, these are my projections or my predictions. Reports about what was just announced in Russia will spread via the internet, social media, and possibly attract a lot of attention. No, I don't spend much time on social media. I think Chandra told me a couple of days ago that she had not seen much discussion of this on social media. So it's possible that social media will choose to ignore it. That's a possibility. If there is talk or chatter about this, then it will force the authorities, the powers that be in the West, to comment on those rumors. And that's what they'll call them. And those authorities will trot out astronomers who will attack the reports of fake as fake. We know that's going to happen. The establishment will claim just another Putin line, live from Putin in Russia. And if discussion of the Nibiru photos continues, and that's a big if, will Putin continue to push this? Will the Russian media continue to push this? We don't know. If they do, the Western establishment will panic eventually and try to suppress such info. But that's not really possible because of the scope of the internet. And as we've seen, we have all these photographs from Soho and Stereo that clearly show there's something out there resembling a fiery bird that's been around for decades. We have those photographs very clearly that show that, but no one in power anyway is talking about them. Eventually, possibly not this year, but maybe 2026, God only knows, the establishment will simply fall silent about the issue. Thus, they will tacitly admit or confirm that Nibiru does exist. They won't admit it publicly. I'm pretty sure of that, because if they do, it will show that they've been lying for the past 3 to 4 decades, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to stand up and say, "Well, sorry, folks, guess what? We've been lying to you. We've been hoaxing you and humbugging you and lying to you about this. We knew it existed all this time, but we didn't think you were ready." They're not going to do that. No.
But of course, Zachary, it's easy to blame the Russians. They can be scapegoated. We can just project anything that we don't want to know onto a lie from the Russians.
Exactly right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally accurate.
If you're right, if Nancy's right, and President Trump and Putin have decided to let the image slip out, well, who's to say that Trump will continue on with that path? He could change his mind and go in reverse. Anything.
Exactly right. So that's why it's up to Trump, and especially Putin. I'm not so sure about Trump because lately he's been vacillating a lot. He's been actually making some decisions which and I know you, Chandra, as well, are pretty sure are not good decisions. I don't think there's much comment about that, but I'm not going to go into it. Well, I will actually. I mentioned the cryptocurrency. He's big on cryptocurrency now, apparently. That's a terrible mistake, absolutely shocking mistake for anyone in the financial world to depend on crypto or say that crypto is the new dollar or whatever he's saying. That's quite shocking, really. But we don't know. We don't know where this is going to go. So I think it's up to Putin to push it in the right direction. But as mentioned, Putin was supposed to make the announcement last March of 2024 about the existence of Nibiru, and he pooped out. He didn't do it, we don't know why that is. So will this go anywhere, or will it fade into obscurity? But it doesn't matter because Nibiru is there and it's coming closer to the Earth, and more people are going to be able to see it either through photographs like Kat took earlier this month, or by examining Soho images, or maybe even looking up in the sky and saying, "Oh, what's that little dot to the left of the sun?" So that's the presentation, my friends.